Back now on a special edition of Triad today, the entire half hour with GOP candidate for Governor Pat McCrory. Bev Perdue declined to participate. Let's go to education for a second. I don't want to spend a lot of time on No Child Left Behind, but just a quick mention. Barack Obama said the other day that just abandoning it or criticizing it isn't the problem. There needs to be some fundamental changes. Agree or disagree? I
agree. There needs to be some changes. In fact, I don't think the federal government should be that actively involved in state responsibility. I do think it was a good idea by the president to have some parameters on what you need to accomplish in the basics, but we're probably over testing. We went from no testing at all to too much testing, and now the teachers are caught in a bind.
It's a horrible system.
It's a horrible system, and anytime the federal government tries to set up one system for all 50 states, you know it's not going to work.
Teachers will tell you, and I'm sure you've heard this, that classrooms have to be conducive to learning. And unfortunately, school violence of one type or another is on the rise. I don't care if it's bullying or talking loud or shootings or stabbing.
Well, plus we have gangs now in our schools.
Plus gangs. Now my question is, should we increase the number of school resource officers, make metal detectors mandatory at every entrance to every school, every ball game? Where are we going with this?
We first of all have to have more special schools for those students that refuse to behave and who abuse our teachers and fellow students. And we need to back up our teachers. I have a sister who's a 5th grade school teacher, and she gets 5th graders cussing her out and spitting on them. I mean, it's just, and the teacher's afraid to put their hand on their shoulder.
Because they get sued.
The 5th grade kids are going, I'm going to sue you. We need to back up our teachers.
And by the way, do you have a relative in every profession? Every question I ask this guy, he has a doctor, who's a brother.
I'm proud of my nephews. I got 9 nieces and nephews. And
he has 47 brothers and sisters and 60 nephews. They're all in every profession. So.
I actually went to Jamestown Elementary School right down the street, and I'll never forget when Mrs. Lockman in 5th grade, I moved here from Columbus, Ohio as a small boy, and Mrs. Lockman asked me a yes-no question. I went, yeah. And she said, what'd you say?
Uh-oh.
And they washed my mouth out with soap for not saying yes, ma'am.
Ooh, my wife does that to me.
And you know what? Now that I think about it, we ought to demand yes, ma'am, and yes, sir.
I agree. I'm serious. I agree. I think that's a good point. We're into the saggy pants controversy in Winston, but we won't get into that right now. Speaking of violence now, you mentioned gangs earlier. Let's tie it into schools. Let's go to the broader community. What can you do as governor to abate this gang problem?
Well, first of all, we ought to pass meaningful gang legislation. Alan Joins, your mayor, and I went up to Raleigh to fight for gang legislation for the last 3 years.
I know.
It was hidden in the Senate. The Senate couldn't even get out of committee. This is the Senate which Beverly Perdue was in charge of. Couldn't even get out of committee. All of a sudden the governor's race comes up. She sent an aide to testify on behalf of the gang legislation. It passed, but we found out after reading it, it was so watered down it didn't make any difference. They are not serious about gangs. We need to take their assets away. We need to give severe penalties, especially to gang members that recruit 11 and 12 and 13-year-old kids out of our schools to sell drugs on the corners of streets right here in Winston-Salem. We do not have, the gang legislation that passed was a joke. I didn't realize it until we read the bill that ended up being watered down in committee meetings that most of us don't know when those meetings are held.
Well, no, they like to keep them secret. It's the spirit of open government. On the topic of crime, before we go to our next break, do you favor deportation of illegal aliens, period, no discussion, let's just deport them?
We have to enforce the law, but the first ones we have to concentrate on are those illegal immigrants who are breaking even more laws, because they broke one law when they came here. They're breaking more laws when they have false IDs, usually 5 or 6 different aliases. But when they drunk drive, when they commit felonies, when they break into homes, we don't even have a detention center in the state of North Carolina by the federal government. The first week as governor, I will demand from the new president, I hope it is McCain, and Palin as the vice president, will demand that we have a federal detention center and immigration court in North Carolina. We're the 10th largest state, and we do not have a detention facility. So what happens is your sheriff is dumped on, and they're put in the county jail, and then they have no place to deport these people.
Before we go to break, you mentioned Sarah Palin. I don't want to say anything good or bad about Sarah Palin. I'm just saying, you're a 7-term mayor. Wouldn't you have been a better vice president for McCain?
Well, the good news is this: it takes a mayor to clean up government.
No, I think the saying is it takes a village, isn't it? I'm not sure.
It takes a mayor.
All right, we'll be.
And I'm going to bring that mayor's philosophy to the governor's office.
This guy, I don't know. All right, we'll be right back after this with our